Okay, in this second video made for Engineering 1332 for this week, I'm going to create a part that uses many of the sketch tools that we illustrated somewhat independently in the first part of the lecture and video, and I'm going to use those sketching tools to create a part that looks like this. It has an interesting sketch that will rely on several of the sketching tools. This is actually a multi-body part in that we're going to make a pulley-like thing that looks like this cross-section, and then it's going to have these spherical features with a rod protruding, and we'll use a pattern to make a couple of them. So once we've created that, I want to turn that part into something that looks like this by collecting those protruding parts with a swept surface or swept solid, and then using patterning to make several copies. And so we'll be doing all of that in this video, just as a maybe reminder of some things and to intensify some things. So first thing I'm going to do is go to make sure I have the right options turned on, including units that I want to set to metric, and I'll click the OK button, which is off the screen, and I will be looking very carefully at this sketch right here. These dimensions will be off the screen for you, but I will be able to see them as I create this part. So here we go. So first thing I'm going to do is click on sketch, and I'm going to sketch on the front plane. And in the sketcher, I've thought ahead about this one a little bit. There are going to be some very helpful center lines. One of them that goes from the origin and proceeds outward horizontally. So there's one center line, and then I'm going to do another center line here that will start below the origin of the coordinate system and proceed up above. And I'm not worried about how tall they are. And then I'm going to create another one out here, and oops, I didn't click on it. Center line, and I'm going to make it vertical as well. Precise heights and things like that I'm not too worried about. Okay, and so in looking at this geometry, these two arcs or circles would be a key item, and then this base location would be a key item, and some of the locating distances are also found in this sketch, so I'll be making use of those dimensions. So I think that the first thing I'm going to do is just create a couple of circles, and I'll have them center here. I apparently didn't get a circle because I was changing windows. Centered there, pull outward, and I will create another one, same center, pulling outward, and I'll come back and work on those circles in just a minute. I'm going to create a line that goes horizontal, down. I'm not going to snap to anything in particular, and back over, stopping underneath this point. Those would be my three lines. A key dimension in this part is that the distance from this line back to the origin, which is contains the axis of revolution, that dimension is given as a diameter of 30. So right away, I'm going to smart dimension this line relative to this axis, and if I move to the left side, I get a diameter dimension. If I move to the right side, I get a radius dimension. Because the drawing gave a diameter dimension, I'm going to type in a diameter dimension of 30. And it moves the line over a bit, and I'm going to move this down and sort of back into play in the part. And it also dimensions that line, while I'm smart dimensioning, this line to a total height of 18.52. Okay, and then I'm going to want to do some things to make that line behave well. But before I do that, I'm going to dimension this length to 6 as given. And now I'm going to start using some constraints. Let's zoom in a little bit. I want this line, and I'm going to hold down Control, click on that line, and I want those lines to be equal in length. I have that. And then I'm going to click on that point and that point, holding down Control and clicking on the center line. And with those, I would like symmetry. about that line. Starting to get an awful lot of the geometry built in that I like, and this area of the sketch is black. And then one of the dimensions given in the chart, or the drawing, is that the dimension from the center of these circles to this line is a dimension of 15. And I've got a little work to do out here on this circle, and so I'm going to create another center line, which I think is probably the most rational way to do this, and this center line will run outward to this circle. And then I'm going to create just a regular line which bridges the two arcs. Let's zoom in a bit. I want to make sure I get the intersection point going to the intersection point. So I get that line, and then I'm going to take this line and I want to mirror it, which is going to be here, mirror entities, about this center line. That was one of its purposes. It creates that line. I'm going to accept it. And now I'm ready to trim those two sections of arc and those two sections of arc. Interesting, I got those as well. I don't think I got that last time I drew the part. I think everything is now trimmed, and so I'll accept the trim. And now that these are arcs, I'm ready to dimension them. Now they're going to dimension and behave like arcs. I want this one to smart dimension with a radius of 5. And I want this one to smart dimension with a radius of 6.5. My parts are now much closer to what I want. One of the things that I could do, this is not turned black yet. I could dimension this angle so that this arc is trimmed at a certain angle. That's not what's given in the drawing. Instead, what's given in the drawing is a total diameter distance from this point to the other side, and so I suppose I will dimension that as a diameter dimension. I will click on this point and the center line, and if I move left of the center line I get a diameter. If I move right of the center line I get a radius. So I'm going to go left of the center line and type in a 70 and accept that. And now looking at this sketch, everything is black except just a few of the little things related to my center lines and such, and I could probably even get rid of some of those right now. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and do that. I don't think I need those any longer, and whatever they were supporting, that job is now gone. Okay, I've got more work to do on this part to finish up its complete geometry. Let's see, I guess I don't need that one anymore either. And so next I'm going to create a spline which will go from this circle to that line. And right now I'm just going to use 2 points on this spline, and I'm going to create another spline because I don't intend them to be the same or symmetric. I intend them to be different. So I've got a couple of 2-point splines, and now let me go to work on the splines. Well, the first thing I want to do with this spline is hold down Control and cause those two to be perpendicular. And then I'll accept that, selecting this spline, holding down Control with this arc, and I'm going to select them to be tangent. I'm going to do the same thing on this side with that one. Control, perpendicular, this one, Control, missed it, tried to do too much at once. This one, Control, and tangent. Now let's zoom in and accept that. A lot of things, so I still basically have my splines as black, so let's dimension these splines, and what I'm going to do is dimension with a smart dimension this one to have a weight, or also a tension, another name for it, of 10. I will accept it. momentary pause to recover from the fact that I got interrupted and I paused the video, but and you didn't know it, but now I'm back from the pause. So let me get my head back into this thing, remember where I was, and carry on. And what I want to do is finish up these two splines and make them look right. I've already just dimensioned the tension of this side to 10, and so I'm going to smart dimension and go to this arrowhead, which is also the tension or weight. Right now it's a 0.717. I will locate it, but rather than typing in another 10, I'm going to say equals that one. Hit enter, and so accept it. And so it does show a 10, but it shows that sigma sign to say that math was involved. Now, even with these two 10s fully set, I don't have a completely defined spline. Apparently something can still move. Oh, let me hit escape, get out of those. Let's see what's movable about this thing. Even though I've got the tangency kicked in, I can move this a lot of different places and still maintain the tangency. The drawing doesn't have any information on what's going on, so I think what I'm going to do is take that point and that point and ask for a vertical constraint. And that now uniquely defines that lower spline, or the upper spline. Now let me work on the lower one, and I'm going to smart dimension this to a value of equals 2 times, and I need to click out to find that 10. So a lot of things are going to be driven by that 10, and I will accept that. That does give me a 20, and then I'm going to also dimension this one and place it to be equal to that one. So it's also going to be a 20, and I'll accept that, but they are related to each other. I still don't have everything black because, again, just as in the previous one, although I can maintain the tangency as I move this thing around, it's still not totally defined. And so I will click on that point and control click on the center and also do a vertical constraint. And now everything is black, but I need to do some trimming to finish up this part. So I will trim those two and those two. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. That was silly. Undo, undo. I will trim only that one, of course, and that one. And I will accept that trim. Now my part is totally black. These equations are showing up red, but my part should be fully dimensioned. And there's no minus sign next to the sketch, so I am fully dimensioned. And now I'm ready to do the revolve. To do the revolve with sketch 1 already selected, I'll move over to features with revolve boss base. I've got so many center lines in there it doesn't automatically know what to revolve about, so the axis of revolution box already highlighted, I will select on that box and I will accept that revolve, and it has given me the part that I'm after. Can rotate it around a little bit and see what it looks like. And now I'm ready to go make the spherical cylindrical protrusions. This thing right here, notice it does have dimensions given, so I'm ready to make those. If I were to zoom in on this, I would see that there's a clearance around these parts, and so actually this is going to be one SolidWorks part, which is actually going to be multi-bodies. And so we're going to have to deal with that in just a minute, maybe for the first time. And so to create that part, I'm going to want to do a sketch. And so I could sketch on multiple planes. The top plane would work, a right plane would work, or a front, and actually any of those planes would work. I am going to go sketch, I don't know, I guess I'm going to sketch on the front plane. And so I will go to sketch with that plane selected, and I will say sketch, and I will view perpendicular. And now I'm going to take this thing into a hidden line type view. Oops, I missed it. Which one shows hidden lines removed? Okay, the hidden lines aren't showing up a lot, so I'm going to go into hidden lines solid. I didn't see the hidden lines well a moment ago. And then I'm going to create a center line that runs straight down the part and horizontal. And then I'm going to create a circle, and I want that circle to snap to the center of this circle that's in my other sketch. When I pause over it and come back to it, it appears as snappable, and then I pull on out, and I'm going to make it intentionally a little bit small. I'll dimension it later, and then I'm going to sketch some lines that I want to start on the circle. Don't like that, and so click on line again. Let me zoom in enough so that it doesn't grab anything I don't want. Click on the line, move out horizontal. I'll get the length right later, and I will click there, and because I'm going to be doing a revolve, I don't need to create the entire cylinder and sphere. So let me bring this line down to there, hit escape, and trim there and there. And this is half of the object to be revolved, which is what I'm going to need. I will accept that, and now let me dimension some things. Smart dimension this radius of 4.5. Let me double check. 4.5, yes. And I will dimension this, what will be a diameter dimension. If I bring it on this side, I get radius. On that side, I get diameter. And for that, I wanted a 4.7. And I'm going to need a length. But that length needs to come after a fillet. So I'm going to put a small 2mm fillet between the arc and the line. And I'm going to accept that. And the dimension given on the drawing, after I accept that and go back to Smart Dimension, that dimension was given as a, where did it go? 14. Okay. Now, for whatever reason, let's look at what sort of stays put. For whatever reason, even with these dimensions, where'd my 14 go? Let's bring that down here. Make that a little bit easier to see, and let's just get some things sort of out of the way. Bring that one to there. Now, why am I not fully dimensioned? Because I can grab this whole thing and still move it. So what I thought I had, which was a snap between the center of this arc and the center of this arc, for whatever reason I no longer have it, but I'm going to fix that. And so I'm going to click this arc and that arc. Oops, need to hold down Control. I have those two arcs, and I'm going to make them concentric and accept that. Okay, and now everything in my sketch except this center line, which I'm going to just drag on out to there, except the center line is fully dimensioned. And I think even to get rid of that little bit of blue, I'm going to click there and let those points merge. And now even my center line is fully dimensioned. I will accept that for my sketch, and I'm with that sketch selected. I'm going to go to Features and do a Revolve Boss Base. of 360 degrees. It appears to be ready to do what I want, and I will accept that. And now I have that additional feature in my part. But notice the number of solid bodies is now 2. I've got my original revolve, and I've got that piece as a separate solid body. Let's go back to a solid shaded viewing and see what we have. And there we are. We have that part. Okay. Now what I want to do is make another copy of this. And so with that revolve selected, and in preparation for doing that, I'm going to go to and turn on my hidden axes, or my temporary axes, because I want to revolve. I want to do a revolve or a circular pattern. So with that revolve selected, I will go to circular pattern, selecting that axis. Okay, it already read my mind. It knows I wanted 2 copies at 45 degrees apart, and so I'm going to accept that. Let's see why. Okay, every time I get this, I'm surprised, and I should start remembering. It says you can only merge features, okay, but you can't do bodies unless you say do bodies, and I forgot to say do the bodies. So I said the feature to revolve was that, but it's not a feature, it's a body. So bodies to pattern, and I will click on, to be safe, solid bodies, revolve to, will go into there, and now I should, 2 copies, I should get what I'm after with no complaint. I now have the 2 copies, and now I have completely made the part that was included in this drawing with this cross section, that cross section. Some of the dimensions were read off of here. This object is completely done. Now what I want to do is turn that object with a little bit more work into this object, which is the revolve ring unchanged, these pieces unchanged, the angle changed, but I want to put a sweep connecting each 2 of them, and then I'm going to take this pattern and pattern that around the object. So let's go do it. So in preparation for the sweep, I'm going to need a couple of sketches. I need a sketch of the cross section of the sweep, then I need a sketch of the path of the sweep. My cross section for the sweep is merely going to be the circular end of one of these. My sketch is going to be a spline in a plane that runs right down the middle of the part, okay, which is almost certainly my, well, let me find it, which is my top plane. I'll place my sketch in the top plane that runs right down the middle of the part, and so I'll sketch a path for the sweep. I'll have a sketch for the cross section of the sweep, and away we go. Well, I just paused for a moment, and because I got interrupted in my office, but I am back now, and so to make the sweep, and I've already planned and thought ahead on the sweep and know some complications where I can make some things easier. One way to make some things easier is knowing where my sketch is going to go for the sweep that connects these 2. I'd like to have a point at each edge of the sweep on these things to be able to grab later. So I'm going to create reference geometry point, and I'm going to create it on the center of that arc center, and accept that point. Arc center. Okay, not sure why it didn't take my first click. And I've now got a point right at the center of that arc, and I'm going to again reference geometry point, and I'm going to do the same thing by clicking on this arc and clicking on arc center, and it looks like it took it first click that time, and I get a point right there. And so I'll be able to do a spline that originates at this thing called 0.5 and arrives at 0.6. And now I'm ready to do the sketch for the geometry of my spline, and it's a very, very simple sketch. I'm going to sketch on that face, and I will go ahead and view perpendicular and bring that in. And now what I want to do is convert entities of that circle. I will accept it. It becomes black. That is my entire sketch to be used for the cross section of this sweep. And now I'm ready to do the sketch for the path of the sweep. And so I know that I'm going to be sketching on the top plane. I'll accept that. Oh, looks like I didn't edit my first sketch. So that finishes my first sketch. I'll click on the top plane and sketch and view perpendicular, please. And I'm going to draw as a useful tool a center line that proceeds from the center of this body outward a bit for now. And there's that center line. And I'm going to take the center line and hold down Control and select that axis, and hold down Control and take that axis, and it understands that symmetry is my only choice, so I'm asking for symmetry there. That way I don't have to dimension an angle between these. It might happen later, but I don't have to dimension an angle between them because that angle has already been set actually earlier as a 45-degree angle. Now I'm going to sketch a spline, and that spline is going to go from the point 5 that I created for that purpose to the end of my center line and to point 6, and I'll hit escape. That creates my spline. Now I want to fully dimension this spline by clicking on the spline, Control click on the center line here. Didn't give it to me. What's going on? Let's try one more time. The spline and Control click on the center line, and I want those to be tangent, and I get it on one side. It appears to have given it to me on the other side, but I don't think it actually did. And actually, if I drag some things around, I can see that it's not maintaining tangency on that side. And so I will accept that one, and then I will click on my spline again and Control click on my axis and ask for tangent on that side and accept it. And so I still don't have precise symmetry because these tensions or weights are not yet set and have not yet been set to be symmetric. So I will smart dimension the weight on this one to be, and 40 looks like a nice starting point, and accept that. And then I will smart dimension the one on this side, and I'm going to make it equal to that one. That's the way to maintain symmetry. I accept it. Okay, now I have what appears to be symmetry. And then the other thing that I will do, and I think that might fully define this sketch, is dimension from this point to the center, which is creating a radius type dimension. And let's go with 60. Seems to be a nice number. Now everything in my sketch, except the dimension 60 itself, but that sketch is fully defined. And with this sketch and this sketch, I can go to Features and do a Swept Boss Base, and it figured out immediately what I want, and I will accept that. And so I've now sort of turned these two different ball and pin connections into a loop of some kind that can swivel around inside this slot. Now I'm going to go play with some of the things. If I double click on, let's see, it's not taking my double click. Let's get in a little bit closer. If I double click on that feature, it shows its size. Actually, what I want to do is go to this circular pattern and double click on that, and I get the dimension of 45 degrees. I'll double click on that. let's see what happens if I take this down to 30 degrees. There are probably some sizes where it might fail, and I'm going to accept it, and then it appears I have to ask for a regenerate to make it happen. That took that down to a 30 degrees just fine. What if I wanted to make this loop go out a little further? If I double click on this one and double click on the 60, what does the 75 do, I wonder? Let's refresh, and my loop looks totally different. So I've got pretty good control over those. I'm going to undo that 75, and so I'm going to leave my loop looking like that. I kind of like it. And then what I want to do is make a few more copies. So I'm going to select the sweep and the revolve 2 and the circular pattern part. I'll select all of those, and I'm going to do a feature circular pattern, and I'm going to my pattern axis is here. It's not showing me that one. We will get to that in just a minute, and I know I'm making a mistake, but I'm going to let the system tell me I'm making a mistake. Actually, let's just play with it like that. No, let's go with 1, 2, 3. Let's go with 5 with a rotation of 360. Okay, let's say that's what I want, and I accept it, and I get this rebuild problem, and it's talking about bodies. And so I have the same problem that I had earlier, but I let it pop up intentionally, and we're going to go to bodies to pattern. Now, what bodies do I want to pattern? I want to pattern let's see, I want to pattern not the revolve one. I want to pattern the sweep, and this entire body now encompasses all of that. That's what I want to pattern, and I'm going to accept it, and I now have the part that I want. And I don't know, this is some kind of an interesting keyring type device where all of these little rings will slide around in this circular object. There's only a minor problem with this keyring is the way it's designed right now. There is no way to take it apart and put your keys in it unless maybe this big first revolve feature were made into 2 parts with some type of a screwed connection between them. But we're not going to worry about that, other than I will point out that it is quite possible in SolidWorks to make parts that can't be built or can't be assembled. You want to watch out for that kind of thing. And that would end this video.